Hello, everyone. Class is gonna start now. So for the next 5 classes, we'll be talking about 20th century world history. Um,
Hello.
hello. So hello, I'm Edison,
Um,
and I'll be your teacher for the next 4 classes.
Wait, in like last year, why was Michael here?
I don't know. I don't know about the other old teachers, but I'll be the new teachers for the next 5 classes.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So there are a few rules I want to make sure is that
No, I don't like rules.
okay, but we're gonna have rules in the class to just make sure the class goes good. So I want you guys to stay muted unless you're allowed to speak.
Okay. Number 3, just have fun.
Yeah. So if you want to speak, you can raise your hand through Zoom. Um, um, so you can raise your hand through Zoom or just chat or put it in the chat. And I think, yeah.
What is 20th centuries?
Yeah, so I'll go over that, but we'll go over the rules right now. So again, stay muted, and if you want to talk, raise your hand or let me know through the Zoom chat. All right, so we're gonna start our class today. So what is the 20th century? Like Lydia asked, what is it? So the 20th century started in 1901, which is 120 years ago. That's a very long time ago. And it ended just in 30th December 2000. So that was like 20 years ago. And a century is 100 years. So there were great changes to humanity during that time. There were a lot of global wars, which we'll be covering a lot in this class. There will be other terms such as decolonization and globalization we'll be covering in the following classes. There was also great population boom. In 1900, there was only 1.6 billion people. And by the year 2000, there were 6 billion people. So there were much more people in the world after the 20th century. And there was also a lot of technological development. And I'll give you a few examples of them right now. And the first one was the first plane. So the first plane happened in 1903. That was just 3 years after the 20th century started. And it was made by the Wright brothers. And the name of the plane was the Wright Flyer. And it was the world's first successful motor operated plane. And it only flew for a minute. And a lot of you guys would think, come on, a minute, it's pretty short, right? But for them, that was a huge breakthrough. Like a minute in the air alone was such a huge breakthrough from just not being able to fly. And there was also the first affordable car. Cars, you see them everywhere in the street, right? But back then, it was really, really expensive. Only rich people could buy cars. So this guy, does anyone know who this guy is? No, all right. So this man right here is Henry Ford. Does anyone know the Ford car company? Oh, you do, Lyndon? Nice. So this guy is the guy who made the Ford car company. And the reason he made it is because he wanted to make cars cheap for everyone. So he made a car known as the Ford Model T. And if you look like it looks really old, right? It doesn't look like any of the cars you have. But what makes, yeah, Lydia?
It looks kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks really nice and cool.
Yeah, but it looks kind of like squishy. You see over here, it like has to be like on like beside your belly, but it like makes me uncomfortable, I feel like.
Yeah, a lot of the cars back then were really simple to make it cheap.
Okay, bye-bye. I'm not gonna talk.
It's okay. If you want to talk, just raise your hand like Lydia. It works well. Okay. So what made the car really special was that it was really cheap, so any family could buy it. And what made it so cheap was because Henry Ford invented something called the assembly line right here. And you might be asking, what is the assembly line? Well, it's a pretty simple concept. So it goes, so back then, everyone would work in one specific piece, right? So there'd be, it starts in this thing, right? And then this person adds in one specific piece, just one piece at a time, and you get into this product. So because everyone just does one specific job, they first get used to the job and they do it quicker. And once what ends up is that it's faster to make the cars, and because it's faster to make the cars, it's also cheaper to produce the cars. And what happened is that this could be applied to every other stuff. So that's it for the 20th century introduction. And we're gonna have a little background check to see how much you understand of maps and stuff, so you can understand what we'll be talking on later on, because there will be a lot of specific technical stuff that you might find difficult. So let's start with this. Does anyone know the continents? Raise your hands up. All right, Lyndon, name me one continent.
North America.
Where is it? Do you know where it is?
It's basically the farthest up.
This one, right? North America, this one, right? Anyone else? Does anyone else want to take a guess? Lydia. Lydia, you can unmute and, oh.
Oh, USA? Is it USA or American?
Yeah, so USA is right here, And where we live is Canada, right here. All right, Yelene,
I claim Canada.
what about you?
Australia and
That's right, Australia is one of the continents. All right, Audrey.
Asia.
Yeah, that's right, the big one right here is Asia. All right, anyone else? Eric, Mia? All right, Yelena again. Which one?
Africa.
Yep, this one right here is Africa. All right, Annie, yes, I think Annie had your hands up, right?
Me? Oh, okay. Russia? Wait, no, that Russia's part of Asia. I'm sorry. South America?
Yep, South America right here, right underneath North America. Okay, Lydia, last one.
Is there China?
China is part of Asia. It's right here. And
It's
that's China.
not.
Yeah, it's
I
part
don't-
of Asia. And
It's-
Yilin, what about you?
Europe.
Europe, yep. So Europe is the last one. So that's the
No, not
6 continents of the world. North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. All right. We're gonna get a bit harder now. Does anyone know all the oceans in the world?
Pacific Ocean. Oops.
All right, so one of them is the Pacific Ocean. Audrey,
Atlantic Ocean.
right? So between here, Atlantic. Yili,
India and Southern Ocean.
Indian, yes, and Southern Ocean is here. And I think there's one more left. Does anyone know what it is?
Arctic.
Yep, that's right, Arctic Ocean. So this is the continents and the oceans of the world. I think after class, you guys could review this because we'll be using these terms a lot during the class, and having an understanding of these continents or oceans, it'll make the class a lot easier for you guys. All right. So this is what Europe looked like during the 1900s, and it looks right now, a lot of you guys would think it looks weird. Yeah, it really does look weird because this was 100 years ago. A lot of times countries changed and stuff. And during the 1900s, Europe was the dominant continent in the world. Yep. Yes, Lydia.
I already know because there was a guy. I don't know his name. He said that he performs a thing, and then he said that he thought that the in the future that the plates will become like apart because in the old times it was like together, all together.
Yeah. So this was just 100 years ago. So it was like it wasn't when the world was together yet. So this is Europe during the 1900s, right? And Europe back then was the strongest continent of all because of something called industrialization. So what industrialization was? Yeah, Lydia, what is?
Um, Wait, how come European in the back then it was so popular and then now it's like very low, not so high?
Can you say that again? I didn't
What
hear.
I'm saying is like in the back then, 80, they were so powerful, but why now they're not so powerful?
Oh, that's a good question, but I think we'll leave it towards the end of the class. I'll
Okay.
answer it in the end of the class. Yeah. So there was something that made Europe really powerful in the 19th century called industrialization. And what industrialization meant was before people used to work in farms, right? And they made their own stuff. But with industrialization, people grouped together into these factories. And because they worked on these factories, they were able to produce a lot of goods at once. And because they have a lot of goods, right? They can use those goods to create more things, build infrastructure like roads, schools, buildings. And what also made them different was that these industrialized nations, right, a lot of factories, that means they can even produce more weapons, right? And with more weapons, that means they're stronger, right? If I bring 10 guns to a battlefield, that means compared to someone who only has one gun, that makes me the stronger person in the battlefield, right? Yeah, so that's the thing. Europeans benefited from something called industrialization. And what happened was that a lot of these European nations, they were so strong that they wanted to expand outside, right? So you can see here in Africa, there are many countries that belong to France. And even in Asia too, like Indochina, like in Vietnam, Cambodia, it all belonged to France because France was so strong. She could take all over these lands. She can take over these lands. And same thing with Britain. Britain was able to take South Africa, also be able to take Australia, you know. So you kind of get the understanding that these countries grew really strong and they started attacking other people. Yes, Lydia, is your hand still up? Okay. So now we're gonna talk about the first war in the 20th century once we covered the 20th century. And trust me, there will be mostly maps. There will be no soldiers fighting. There'll be no blood, no guns. So don't worry about it. So it's the Russo-Japanese War of 1904. And raise your hand if you ever heard of it. All right, that's good. And nobody knows it. All right. So the Russo-Japanese War was a war between Russia, which was this big country up here, right? And Japan, which is right here. It's in the orange color. So you might be thinking, why are these two countries so far apart fighting against each other? Well, we can talk about Russia's story then. Russia, like many European countries, wanted to get big and strong, right? And because they had industrialization, they expanded across Asia. And they really, really wanted this part of China right here. So they built this railroad from their capital, which is here, St. Petersburg in Europe, all the way to here. So they can send troops all the way to China, right? And they also fought against China in a war in the 1900s. And what ended up is that they took over northern China, right? And they put troops into Chinese territory right here, and here. And I want you guys to especially remember this part. Especially remember this part, because for Russia, it was really important. They wanted a city that had access to the Pacific Ocean so they can increase their control over Asia, right? With, a boat, they can, if someone declared war of them, they can, from here, they can attack, right? So it was really important to them. And for Japan, Japan during that time underwent something called the Meiji Restoration. And you might be wondering, why is it called Meiji? In Japan, they have a tradition of calling time periods after their emperors. Can you draw? All right. Yeah, he has a really funny face. Yeah, I agree. So this guy was the emperor of Japan, and they named the Meiji Restoration after him because his name is Meiji. And during what really made the Meiji Restoration important is because it transformed Japan from an old society, really backward society, right? Something really poor, into something more similar to the European powers. Japan sent a lot of people to Europe to learn about European technology, European science, right? And they also learned about European warfare. So from here, you guys can see a huge change, right? Like over here, you see they are still using swords. There's no uniform, right? They're just wearing whatever they want. But in here, you see it's different. They have guns, right? They have uniforms, and they're disciplined, right? They're standing in a strong line, and you can see the huge difference between these two periods. So the Meiji Restoration in general means Japan changed from an old society and into a new society after the European nations. And Japan, just like Russia, wanted to expand. And so they expanded into China, into the 1894 Chinese-Japanese War. And in this war, Japan took Korea from China. And so you can see here, Japanese troops were stationed in Korea. But the thing was, Japan was really scared of Russia, right? You see how big Russia is compared to Japan. Like, Russia is still the biggest country in the world. So Japan was really scared. So Japan went to Russia and said, hey, what if we can keep Korea and Russia can keep northern China? right? But Russia didn't like that at all. Russia wanted Korea too. And they thought they could take it because this guy, who's the leader of Russia, his name is Nicholas II, thought Japan was really, really weak, right? Because a lot of the times, these Europeans, they thought that they were better than the Asians. They thought that they had industrialization. That meant that they were stronger than Japan. But they are wrong because Japan also industrialized. And here's a really famous political cartoon. And it shows that Russia thinks that they can easily, eat up Japan, like Japan is nothing. But Japan was also preparing for the war. Japan made friends with Great Britain, one of the European countries with the best navy in the world. So, and since Japan industrialized, right, Japan thought Japan was pretty strong and was ready to fight against Russia. So in 1904, Japan declares war on Russia. And what happens is that the Japanese does a surprise attack on, remember this port where I said it's really important? Japan did a surprise attack in that port and they sunk all the Russian ships in that area. Yeah, that's right. They sunk every single Russian ship in that area. And then they crossed from their territory in Korea into Russian territory over the Battle of the Yalu River. And you might be wondering why it's called the Yalu River. It's because the river between Korea and China is called the Yalu River. And then afterwards, they surrounded the Russian port over here and they started attacking it. And at this point for Russia, it looked pretty bad because now one of their most important ports was under attack by Japan. So they started thinking of ways to save that troops that were stuck here. And one of the suggestions that they had was to send their ships from Europe all the way to Japan. Like they thought that they could send all the way to Japan, right? But then what happened is that in this specific area called the Sinai, the British actually controlled it. So Japan's friend controlled it, right? So they didn't allow the Russians to go through that thing. So Russia had to go all the way down, all the way of Africa, and then all across the Indian Ocean to reach Japan. And if you compare both ways, you can see that this route that Britain forced Russia to go through was much longer, right? And so because these guys were waiting so long, right? Yeah, Lydia.
Wait, why did he did not let his friend come to his place if he does not allow the Russian to go for the shortcut?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. So remember before the war, Japan and the United Kingdom made friends with each other, right? So Japan, United Kingdom friends. And so this is Japan, right? It's over here. And this is the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I know, but then why did he not let him go for a shortcut? Japan, but yeah.
Okay. So if someone is fighting your friend, would you help the guy fighting your friend?
No.
No, right? Exactly. So Britons thought the same thing. They're like, why do I have to help Russia? So they made Russia go all the way around Africa instead. You see?
Yeah.
So if Russia had to go all the way around Africa, they were really tired, right? Because that's a really, really long way to go. And back then they didn't have planes. Yes, Linda?
Does that mean that the ship sank?
Yeah, a lot of the ships sank during the way to Japan. because remember, back then there were no planes. They had to go through ships, and ships, if you ever went on one, they were really, really, really slow. And what ended up was that Japan successfully took Russia's port by then. And Russia tried to save it by initiating a land attack in a place called Mutkin. But that also failed. So that means Russia lost this place forever. And in the Battle of Tsushima, so after a while, remember the Russian ships that were coming all the way from Europe, right? So they finally came, and they were just here, right in this spot, when the Japanese fleet, they came right over this place called Tsushima, right? And the Japanese were waiting for them right here, and the Japanese attacked. And what ended up was that the smaller Japanese boat were able to defeat the larger Russian boats because of one major reason. Russia had to go all the way around Africa on the Indian Ocean, right? So by the time they came here, they were really, really tired and they couldn't fight. So the Japanese sunk all the Russian boats here.
Wait,
Yeah.
I have a question. How
Yeah,
did
what is
they get enough food supply and water supply?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So I'll tell you, since you guys want to get into detail, I think that's completely fine. So Russia was friends with France, right? And France controlled an area all the way like this, over here too, and here. So that was, so every time, so what ended up was that Russia would go to France, they stop at France, and then they go to Africa and they stop at Africa, and then they stop at Madagascar right here. And they go all the way here and they stop here and take a rest. And then they go here and fight Japan. Oh, you see, right? Yeah. But that's a really, really long way. It took them a whole year to go around like that. And yeah, I know, right? And staying on a boat for a whole year, it makes everyone sick and tired. So none of the Russians wanted to fight. So what ended up was that all the Russian boats, yes, Lydia?
What is my question is, but what if like why was in Madagascar, why was there no people, and the other thing they took a rest but there was no people? How do they even get past?
So Madagascar actually has people in it, and it was owned by France during that time.
Yeah, but then how can they pass without bringing the boat?
Oh, yes, so they did bring their boats to Madagascar. They brought it from Africa to Madagascar, and they stopped there.
Wait, so France and France and that guy,
Russia.
Russian, were they friends or?
Yeah, they were friends, so they helped each other.
Okay, so they were sleeping in the beds at night, or did they just rest for a little while I go back?
Yeah, so when Russia came to France, right? France would give them time to sleep. France would give them water, give them food, so they can continue on their journey. Because it was a really, really long journey, right? It's a whole year. Yeah.
So nice. Okay.
So the Battle of Tsushima, all the Russian boats were sunk right here, right at this area. And that meant Japan won the war, right? Russia not only lost their port here, but they also lost their whole boats here. So Russia was forced to sign a peace treaty with Japan. Right here, you can see Russia, and this is Japan. And the person making the peace treaty was actually the American president, Teddy Roosevelt, who is right here. And what it promised was that Japan could control, Eric?
why didn't they just walk on land instead of going in the water? If they are on land, they could get things that they could eat and drink just there.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Why?
I think it's longer.
Right. So
Because
good
it's
question.
walking.
So a good question is why not send troops from Russia down here, right? Why not walk through land, right? Well, the Russian strategy was so because the battlefield was let me draw it real quick. So a lot of the fighting happened in this area, right?
Yeah.
So for Japan to
You
send
could
troops
just
to
go
that
over
area,
it.
right?
You could
So
just
for
go
Japan,
over it.
that's true. That's true. Russia could do that, but Japan for Japan to send troops to that place, they have to go through the sea, right? Right.
Yeah.
So Russia thought
But
that Russia wanted
you could
to,
do this.
yeah, Russia wanted to cut the sea route, right? So that means these guys here don't have any food anymore.
Yeah.
Here, I'll put it in simple terms. So for Japan to fight, they needed to go over the sea. So Russia sent over their boats, so then Japan can't go to the battlefield.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Did
you
you
understand.
wait the air there?
What?
Did Japan just wait through when they just started the journey there?
Yeah, Japan just went through the sea because there were no Russian boats at that time.
Oh.
Yeah. And so what the treaty promised was that Korea would belong to Japan, right? Russia couldn't say that it's there anymore. And Japan also got Russia's really important port over here. And the war was really bad for Russia. So the war was, since it was like the first conventional war in the 20th century, a lot of new technologies were introduced. Like these rifles, for example, were really new technology. Back then, if you wanted to fire a gun, right, you fire it once and then you have to reload it. So like you have to put a new bullet inside it and it will take a really, really long amount of time, right? But with these new
Yeah.
guns, you can fire 4 times at once. Like, so you can fire more bullets at the enemies, and it meant a lot of people could be killed, which is not a good thing. And there was also one more thing, is that remember of the population boom I talked about, like how there were more people in the world? Yeah. So more people means that the armies were also bigger, right?
What? You mean if there's too much people in the world that the world can just have all of them, then the army will be so much that
wait, I have a question.
Yeah, what is it?
So, why, if Russia is bigger than China, then why does China have the most people?
Okay, good question. I'll keep that in the end of the class, since yeah, we can do in Q&A in the end of the class where you guys can ask me anything. But right now I want to like be focused a bit on the topic right now. So what happened was that there were bigger armies, that means bigger battles, and the guns could fire much more. So there was more, you can kill people more, which is a really bad thing. And the war was really embarrassing for Russia because Japan was seen as a small nation, right? And you see that Russia is really, really big, but they lost the war to Japan. So yeah.
what's the mouse?
And the mouse is just
The timer,
everyone else.
probably?
So it was just everyone else in the world looking at how long Russia is gonna lose.
Oh, they all want Russia to lose?
Yeah, because if you see a big guy bullying a small guy, you would want the big guy to lose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these guys saw the same.
Japan to win the war.
Yeah, and Japan did win the war. And
And
Russia was, yeah, what is it?
why they draw Japan as a little guy and draw the Russia as a big bear? If he's a man, Japan could just take out a gun and kill the bear.
That's true. So they drew Russia as the big bear because Russia is the biggest country in the world. But Japan is really, really small, right? So that's why
Yeah.
they drew Japan small. And what they wanted to show in this picture is that the small guy beat the big guy up.
What did the small guy said?
Have you had enough yet?
What's said on the sign?
For the championship of the Far East. So that place that they were fighting over is called the Far East. And the war was
there?
yeah.
Who's
Uh
drawing on
Amy,
there? It says
Amy drawing.
Emily.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, the war was really embarrassing for Russia. And because of that, many people thought Russia was weak. It was useless. And later that would influence a lot of leaders on how to decide. Like that would change the course of history because that means a lot of Russia's enemies thought Russia was weak. So that means they can fight Russia easier. And one thing it also motivated was that it motivated Japan to get bigger and stronger, right? Because they just beat Russia. There's no one stopping them anymore. So they just decided to grow larger and larger and larger until at one point it ended.
Like,
So
why didn't like? Where's the place that Japan just had?
oh yes,
Like
let's
had
go
one,
back.
like just had when he didn't got that place yet.
All right, yeah. So this is Japan right here. You see the red?
Yeah. It's so
Uh,
small.
Yeah, it is really small, right? Amy, can you not draw on the map? Thanks. And this is what Japan got. Remember before I said Japan also fight China, right?
Mm.
So Japan got this from China, right? And this is
And where
after,
just had when he where did Japan just got one
beating Russia.
like before beating China?
Oh, okay. Before beating China and Russia, there was just small area right here. There was these, it was just these three islands right here. It's really small.
What's 3 islands?
This one, 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, only that bit.
Yeah, it's really, really small. That's why in the picture you saw, Japan is like small and Russia is big.
Japan is like it's like a 90 years old
Yeah.
man with a diaper.
Yeah. It's actually sumo characters. If you guys want to, I can show you guys what sumo characters look like. They're really funny. But anyways, since you were curious what Japan also got after the war they got all this area. Yeah, so they got Korea and parts of China.
And did Japan got more after?
Yeah, so after the war, they kept on growing bigger and bigger until
Like this?
yeah, like this. It's pretty big, right? Oh,
Who
come
draw
on,
that?
Amy.
Amy.
All right,
Who is
Amy.
Amy?
So anyways, that's what happened. Japan got bigger until it got stopped by Canada and the United States. So that's it for the Sino-Japanese War. For next class, we'll be talking about World War One. World War One is a really important topic in 20th century world history because it is the most important war.
Again? No. No.
Okay, I understand you guys don't like wars, but this is a 20th century. There's a lot of wars happening in this area. And this war is probably the most important war that you guys will learn in 20th century.
Mostly I know about World War II.
Yeah, but World War II
Yeah.
wouldn't happen without World War One. Yes, Eric?
Wait.
Oh,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Was World War One the one of the most deadliest wars because there was gas things and then the other weapons like flames?
Yeah, there were a lot of new technologies.
Huh?
There were a lot of new technologies. So yes, a lot of people died in that war. And yes, Eric, what is it?
Like my brother said there are no tanks in World War One. Is that real? Yeah, there's only tanks in World War Two, actually, I think.
Well, I got bad news for both of you. There were tanks in World War One. The first tanks were made for World War One, in fact. So you can tell your brother that. Lydia, yes.
So what's my question is, were there the bombs? Were they were like in the time of that time? Were they like that time like did they had bombs?
Yes, they had bombs during that time, and
How
that's
big?
why.
Did they have the A bomb?
Okay, could
no, I think that only be in World War II.
yeah,
I
so he's
think.
correct. There's only nuclear bombs in World War II. But again, I want you guys to
Wait, what's the difference between atomic and nuclear?
Atomic is like explosive, and nuclear, well, wait,
Alright.
no, I think it's atomic has like radiation, and nuke is just a giant kaboom.
all right, so okay, first things, can you guys stay muted until I let you guys speak? Because if you guys speak a lot, like everyone's speaking over one another, you guys can't hear it, right? So on the question on what's the difference between an A bomb and a nuclear bomb? Well, from what I know, they're the same thing. It's just different names from it. And I think before Lydia asked the question about why is Europe weaker today than it was in the 20th century? Well, the main reason Europe is weaker now is because many other continents around Europe also industrialized, right? They copied Europe's technique of making factories. And now because Asia is bigger than Europe, Asia could make more factories. So that means Asia is now considerably stronger than Europe. And I think there was one more question. Yes, yes, Harvey, what is it? Was the gas in, was it like the poison gas in World War II or one? It happened in both wars. Oh. Yep. And didn't the Nazis fight the German? Didn't the Germans just use like Yes. So in World War One, the Germans first used the gases. Yeah. So in World War II, wasn't there a law that says don't use this? Not allowed to use like the gas, like. Yeah. So a really interesting story about that is before World War One, a lot of the European countries together, they came together, right? And they said, let's have a set of rules for a war. Because killing each other is not fun. So let's have a set of rules on how to kill each other. And one of the rules was that, no, you cannot use gas to kill another person. But Germany didn't care about the rule, and Germany still used gases anyways. Yes, they are. They are very bad. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Eric, what is it?
Wait, how many countries were involved in World War One?
My brother, a lot. My brother says there's a tank called Rattle in German, and there's only one. At last, it got broke because it could make more things, and then the Germans thought it could make more, and Rattle's not so good. Is that real?
Can you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Like German make a tank that's very big called rattle, and at last Germans thought it's not so good and broke
Yeah.
it. Is that real?
So I have a really interesting story about that. So the tank that your brother was talking about is this thing, right?
Wow.
So the Germans wanted to make that tank, right? But they did not have
Yeah.
enough money to make it. So in the end, they did not make it.
But at last they
Oh.
really made it.
Did they actually make it?
No, they did not make it because they did not have enough money for it.
Oh, what about Panzer tanks?
So Eric, I hope
How
that
about tiger?
right, we can answer
Tiger.
that later.
What
It's
about
Eric's
Panzer
question.
tanks?
It's Eric's turn right now, so I'll just answer for Eric first, and then you guys can
Uh,
raise your hands.
Like they like if they didn't made it, how could the tank appear on this picture?
So this is just a picture that they drew out, right? This is what they wanted the tank to look like, so they drew it out in a piece of paper.
It's so real.
Yeah, it looks really real. Yeah. All right. Now next question. Spinosaurus aegyptica.
What about Panzer tanks?
Right. So about that question, Panzer tanks in World War II, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, how much did they cost, and how did they make them? And
Okay. About that, let's talk about the most common
Wow.
Panzer.
Yo, it's huge. It must cost $1 million to buy it.
I don't think it's that much.
Maybe 2050.
By the way, we're talking about this because it's still 8:20, and then class
Yeah.
officially ends
That's at 8:30.
8:30.
Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe it's
So-
$20 because it's not nice.
All right.
Good.
So can
Wait,
all right,
stop.
I'm gonna start muting people now because you guys are talking out of turn. All
Oh.
right, so you wanted to talk about the Panzer, and the most common tank, the most common Panzer was the Panzer IV. It looks like this, right? And you wanted to know about how much it costs, right? So
Yeah.
usually, if you want to know how much it costs, you can just go to the Wikipedia page, and they'll tell
What?
you how much it costs right here. 103,000 Reichsmarks.
What is Reichsmarks?
Reichsmark is the name of the German currency, and I think we can convert this to Canadian dollars, right?
Convert. Go to convert. Blah blah blah. Wait, what is DuckDuckGo?
It's Google but cheap.
Google but cheap? What is that? Historical concurrency converter.
I think, yeah, so this is the most common Panzer tank in Germany back then. So I hope that answered your question. And for cost, you can just go to Wikipedia and convert it yourself.
I have a question.
Yes, Harvey, your turn.
Was there rail cannons?
Oh, yes, of course.
I mean rail guns.
Yes, there was railguns during that time, and it was called the Gustav cannon.
No, I'm not. I mean
You mean this,
coil
right?
gun. Yes, I know the Gustav cannon. It's very big, but not very accurate.
Yeah. So what railguns are you talking about?
I'm talking about coil gun.
Coil guns? Like, can you spell
A coil,
it?
and
Like
then
coil?
you add a gun.
Oh, this? Oh, they didn't have it back during World War II or World War One.
No, search.
What in the world is that?
Search
So
military coil gun. It's coil gun is a gun that uses coil and electricity to shoot a projectile
this,
very fast.
this.
Yes, and that.
Oh well, in World War One and World War II, they did not use it because the technology was still limited, right? And
Yeah.
even today, they don't use this yet because
How
it
about
costs
EMP?
EXT,
EMP.
EFT gun,
No, I said EMP.
EFT, right?
No, EM.
What? ET
EMP.
like this?
I said no.
It's EM.
E for electric and M for move,
Yeah.
and then P for
Oh, EFT. Yes. This one?
EM, not F.
Oh my
M.
god. This? Oh,
Oh, EMP.
wait. Oh my god.
Capital, all capital.
EMP. This?
No, it's just EMP, no gun.
No gun. All right. What's that? Like this electromagnetic pulse?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's
Was it in World War I or II?
no. This is physics. It doesn't do anything with history.
No, the EMP, electromagnetic pulse, can disarm or disable electric stuff. Like
Yeah.
if
So
you had a
that's
light bulb and electromagnetic
so the
pulse
thing is
moves
that a
near
lot
it,
of
it would
weapons.
turn off the light bulb because
Yeah.
too much energy. Electromagnetic pulse is what it is.
All right. So the thing in World War I and World War II is that a lot of the technologies did not use electricity in it. So even if this existed back then, it would be pretty useless. All right. I hope that answered your question. And Eric,
What's the powerfulest thing in the World War II?
most powerful thing? Well, I think you guys talked about it before, the nuclear
The
bomb.
Mama Ningo.
What's nuclear bomb?
This thing.
Nuclear bombs are basically those things that explode like a volcano, except the thing is kind of like a mushroom, and then it's the most powerful one could explode a city.
Yep, that's right.
You could actually I have a nice thing. Go on YouTube. Can you do a video?
What do you want to?
Plus not nuclear bomb.
Yeah,
Plus
we're
not.
not watching nuclear bombs. We're not watching
No,
nuclear bombs.
plus not. Oh, there's no violence.
No, we're not watching nuclear bombs. I know what they look like. They don't look really pretty.
Nuclear bombs aren't that scary. By the way, I know how they work.
That's cool.
They have like a bunch of explosive stuff inside, and when it touches, it explodes.
Sorta. That's
Is there how about uranium? Is there any weapons that use uranium?
yeah, nuclear weapons.
Can you search uranium? I don't know what it
Is
was.
it nuclear?
Can you
Yeah.
search uranium?
Is it the
All right.
N?
Okay. All right. 1% at a time.
EW
one?
It explodes like
Alright.
there's
All
stuff
right.
bonking
I'm
each
gonna
other.
start muting people because
The whole
1% at a
world.
time. So it was Yelin's turn, right? And you wanted to talk about nuclear bombs, or? All right, I guess not. What about you, Harvey? What do you want to say?
Uranium.
Uranium? Why are you interested in that?
I have no idea what it looks like.
Well, you don't know what it looks. Well, it looks like this. It's just a slab of metal. But what's really special about it is that it's so dense, right?
Oh, can you
Once-
do mercury?
Alright,
Mercury, not
sure.
mercury. Mercury.
Why are you talking about elements?
Because I don't have no idea.
Mercury. Not
This one?
it's mercury is dangerous, right?
Yeah, it's really poisonous. So
And
if
it
you-
kills. Oh,
There's in fish. They're in fish.
no, these are not in fish. If you ate this with fish, you would have.
you
Oh.
Yeah, right.
you would.
Exactly. All right. Okay. So since we only have 2 more minutes till the end of class, I think
Can
it's
we
a
watch a
perfect.
video?
No, we're not gonna watch a video, but
Aw.
I think it's a great time for feedback. So any changes you guys want to make in the class, like what do you guys want to learn in 20th century? What activities do you want to do? So for Yelin, for example, said that you guys would want to do a Kahoot, right? Something fun, something a game like that in the by the end of class. So I think for next class, I'll create a Kahoot. And yeah, Spinosaurus.
Can we talk about World War II?
Nah, we can talk about World War II after World War One.
Wait,
Teacher.
is there
Teacher.
airstrike? Is there
Uh,
airstrike?
All right, Harvey, I didn't let you speak yet, so I'm gonna mute you right now. Yes, Yulin.
Just to tell you something, that Spinosaurus guy is actually Lyndon the Lazy Head.
Okay, thank you. All right, Harvey, what do you want to say?
What did I say again?
I have no idea because I just muted you.
Did you say? Is there such thing as sulfuric acid or H2O2?
Yes, there is something called sulfuric acid. But again, this has nothing to do with the class. And if you want to do research on minerals, you can do it on your own after class.
You gotta search up the periodic table of elements. If so, you don't have to search them all. So you don't have to search them all up. Lyndon, could you change your name into Lyndon?
All right, it's okay. We can keep it
Spelled
like.
Linden, maybe.
All right, okay. I'm gonna start muting people again because speaking out of turn.
Can I be
But-
the co-host?
No, you may not be the co-host
Why? Why
because I am the boss here. There's only one boss here, and that's me. All right. Any last suggestions or
about your
questions?
I have a
Eric,
question.
what is it, Lyndon?
Wait, so what was like the other part of the world during the 20th century? I mean, like at North America and South America. What was happening over there?
So I think we'll cover it a lot in next class because next class will be World War One, and World War One means everyone in the world is joining, right? So you'll see America joining the war. You'll see Mexico being involved. You might even see Brazil getting involved too. So that's something interesting.
What about Madagascar?
Yeah, Madagascar was part of France, so they also joined World War One.
Egypt?
Egypt was part of Great Britain, so it also joined the war.
Nigeria?
Nigeria was part of Great Britain, so they also joined the war. So there's a reason why it's called World War One, right? Everyone joined in that war to fight.
Alaska?
Alaska was part of America.
Every place, every
Greenland?
Oh,
Nearly every place. Nearly every place, I can tell you. All right.
Actually, no. Antarctica didn't.
Okay, but is anyone living in America?
Pole. North Pole.
No.
There's
Santa-
no governor in those places.
Yeah. All right. So.
Some people live in North. Santa
Alright.
is the governor
Alright.
for
All right. Eric, last question.
Santa.
Santa? I don't think so.
Why don't the countries just say, I don't want to do this war, and then they just could save some money and don't waste so much of money and be safe.
Okay. I think that's a good question, and that'll be the last question of today's class. So why can't a country just say, I don't want to fight? Well, just a simple example. If someone is fighting you and you say, I don't want to fight, do you think they'll stop fighting you?
No, they could just make a wall.
Yeah, but if you
Isn't
make
that
the
the
wall,
meaning of the Great Wall of China?
yeah, the Great Wall of
Yeah.
China was.
The wall in Britain, I
Yeah.
think.
But even if you built a wall, people will still attack you. Like a lot of the
Air
Mongolians,
raids.
yeah, a lot of the Mongolians attacked China around the wall. So if you're fighting someone, you're gonna have to fight till the very end. It usually happens like that because you can't just tell them to stop, right? You guys are in a fight. It doesn't work like that. All right, I hope that answered your question. And I think last question for today would be from Harvey. So Harvey, what is it? Last one.
If you had mine, would you stop the Mongols?
Could you say that again?
Can you stop someone from attacking you just by setting up a whole entire circle of mines?
No, it doesn't work because a lot of countries use mines and they still fight each other. So no, it doesn't work. All right, that's it for today. And I just want to go over a few rules again. Like, I think today's class was pretty decent for most of the time. Though I would just like to ask you guys to not unmute and say whatever you want, because what ends up is 10 kids talking at once, and I don't really understand what's going on. So, and other than that, thank you so much for paying attention in class, asking a lot of good questions actually, because I'm pretty surprised that you guys know a lot. And again, thank you for coming to the class, and good night. That'll be it for today's class. And remember, tomorrow we'll be covering World War One.
It's first of all, it's not tomorrow, I think. And
Yeah.
second of all, we don't have 10 kids. We only have 8.
All right, thank you for your corrections. Yeah, we have 8 kids, and yeah, the next class would be next Saturday, same time, I believe. Right?
Do you like my shirt?
Can you say that again?
Do you like my shirt?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
It's actually just a background.
Yes, I know
Oh.
that. I used the green screen. I can even
Yeah.
do something like that.
All right.
Wait.
Okay, so I'll end the
what
meeting.
Uh-oh. I survived books again.
Oh, I know. What do you want me to turn into a background or a nice?
Right. Since the class is gonna end, I think I have to end the meeting for everyone else too. So I'm gonna say goodbye and have a good night. We're gonna see
No.
each other on next week.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I only see the co-host.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I want to be the co-host.
Bye.
Bye.